Hi everyone on the sports clock, and I am so excited to catch up with. Even though we're not related, it's my sister,
Hey guys.
Rachel.
Hello.
Rachel,
Hello, hello.
yeah. So Rachel is an assistant coach at Division I Seattle University. She has had stops, so she played. How Rachel and I got to know each other was she played at Missouri State when I was a men's basketball manager. Then I moved over to women's basketball. Worked with her or worked with the team for a year, and we just all became like sisters, like me, Rachel, Lexi Hughes, Oni. And it's been fun to kind of watch our journey. So Rachel was a GA at East Tennessee State, then transferred to or went to Drury, was a GA, was an assistant at a community college in Washington, then was the head coach at Davis and Elkins, and I believe it was South Carolina, right?
West Virginia. West Virginia.
West Virginia. Sorry, okay, I forgot.
No, all
That
good.
was
In
my
the
screw up.
Apples.
Okay, and then yeah, and then one season as an assistant at St. Mary's, and then now as an assistant coach at Seattle University. So, Rachel, awesome to have you on. Great to catch up. How are things going back up or back out west?
Yeah, thanks so much, Tyler, for the introduction. Gosh, it's exhausting just hearing you name all the places that I've bounced around. And I'm happy that I've landed at a
We're in
wonderful.
the same boat, though, aren't we?
You said what?
We're in the same boat, though, right?
Right, right. And it's just kind of how the young professional world works. But I'm great. I'm happy to be here and talk shop. And we've had a friendship, both I think a personal family based relationship as well as a professional one now for many years. And I'm just so happy our paths crossed and we can chop it up a little bit. So yeah, things are going great. I love being back out west, out in Seattle. Obviously, working with the women's basketball program out here at Seattle University, and we have a lot of exciting things in store. The program's been great so far, and I'm excited for where we're headed.
Yeah, that's awesome. And so I have one or two stories real quick. So the first is, I don't know if you remember these,
Oh
but
gosh.
yeah, well, so the first is, do you remember when we had the holiday party there at Kelly Harper's? Kelly Harper was the coach at Missouri State. Then she went to Tennessee for listeners who don't follow women's basketball. But we had the holiday party there, and it snowed and like freezing rained and all that, and like all the players had to pile into whatever car they could get into. So I believe it was. I had my Honda Civic, so it was me. You were in the passenger seat. Megan Hawkins, our manager, was in the back. There were like two other people, maybe Aubrey and Tiana. I can't remember, but my car was packed, and I literally was like sliding down. I think it was it Glenstone? I can't remember. It was there by the Best Buy there at Springfield. Right. And I was like, oh my gosh, like I'm gonna get in a car. Like it was horrible. We made it back fine, but it was like things you chalk up as like, well, welcome to the winter,
Right. It's funny you say that because for me, moving from the West Coast close to a city to the Midwest, just the transition in a lot of ways was very different for me. And the weather was one of those things that, like, we don't have ice storms out here in Seattle, in Washington. And the weather kind of, changes at the blink of an eye, which is kind of fun and exciting, kind of keeps you on your toes. But definitely, I do remember that story. And there were some funny other weather related stories as well. Nothing like the Missouri weather.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, I lived in Chicago, and then, now living in the New York. I've been very, very blessed. When I was in Chicago for 3 years, didn't really feel, everybody's like, oh, the weather. And I think it snowed like 3 times in 3 years. And now I'm in the New York area. I've been here almost 2 years. And so I think it snowed twice. So it's like, maybe I'm just a Florida. Maybe I bring the Florida weather everywhere I go, even though I've only lived in, I don't want to live in Florida for almost 2 years.
Good luck. Maybe some good luck.
The only yeah. So the other story too was, if you remember, and this will kind of transition into our coaching conversation. So, um, I was at Loyola. I was a GA. I was a graduate manager at Missouri State, and then for a year I'd already graduated. Was just taking classes, trying to stay in coaching, and then Kelly and John gave me a hell of an opportunity to stay there. Hey, take a couple classes, help us out, whatever. And I knew you and Lexi and Oni, and so I was like, oh, why, you know. But my plan was to move to Chicago. So then I got the GA's job at Loyola Chicago, and there was a coaching change. But I'll never forget my last year at Loyola. It was your all senior night, and I begged Coach Octor, who took over for Coach Swoops. I said, I have to see like senior night. Like, I can't be in the locker room. Like when, usually the teams, like the visiting team goes in the locker room, preps, all that. It's like, I can't be there. I got to see my sisters like for the senior night. Not only did I get to see that, but like, Coach goes, that's a heck of an idea. She goes, I'm trying to build a program. And she goes, I want to see my players watch what a senior night, someone who's blood, sweat, tears, see what a senior night looks like. Because we had a bunch of transfers and all that. And so we sat there on the bench, and I teared up a little bit, but it was awesome to be there. But I wanted to win, but we
No, I love that. And I think that just is a testament to the type of person you are and the relationships that we all had built. And honestly, now kind of looking back, you bring that story specifically up, and it's pretty rare to have, especially these days with NIL and the transfer portal, to have a graduating class all stay, at one institution. So to have all three of us, have our senior night from Missouri State where we started was pretty special.
That was awesome. And last thing I'll say before we get into yeah, when I saw that on the schedule, I thought, how ironic. Loyola's playing at Missouri State on senior night. Like, that I think that was planned. I think someone would, but anyway, so before we get into the NIL and all that, the last thing I'll say is I remember when there was a coaching change made at Loyola, and I'd come down from Chicago for a few days or whatever, and I had you and Lexi, and I can't remember if Oni was there, but I know it was you and Lexi, definitely. And we're sitting at the dinner table, and my parents, grilled food and all that. And they said, I said, yeah, I don't know how Loyola will like this because, I've got players from, visiting team from the conference. And my mom, of all people, goes, well, it's kind of hard to get mad when you don't have a coach, because we didn't have a coach at the time. I don't know if you remember that part. I started laughing because I was just like, yeah, you're right. Just enjoy the moment. So
it's funny. It's like the name of the game these days, and you kind of lived that side of things before I even did, right? As a coach, is just understanding the ebbs and flows of staff changes and hires and fires and that kind of thing. It can be a lot. It kind of can be a thorn in your side a little bit, but I think you landed back on your feet pretty well.
Yeah, and I appreciate that. Like, I remember when I got fired at Loyola, well, technically my contract was up as a GA, but coach wasn't bringing me back, which was fine. It was time to move on. And I'd really fallen out of, I remember texting you and Lexi and saying, I feel like basketball's I'm trying to put that behind me. And so when coach called me in, she said, I can't bring it back next year. And I was relieved, but I also, that's not exactly how you want to go out either. So, but I've recovered, I got into HR, which is great. But so it's, it is what it is. But getting into that too, the coaching world. So you brought up NIL, that's changed. I didn't even know what the NIL was until about a year and a half, 2 years ago. So how's that changed since we were in our college basketball days?
Gosh, I mean, did anybody know what it was until 2 years ago, a year ago, really? NIL, for those of you that, are sports fans, are not, is name, image, likeness. And so essentially it's student athletes that play at the NCAA level, elite divisions, being able now to financially capitalize and make financial gains off of their own name, image, and likeness, which up until about 24 months ago was not really an option for collegiate athletes. And there's been so many athletes over the years. I think one of the more notarized athletes, Johnny Manziel at Texas A&M, phenomenal quarterback, right? Not being able to earn any income off of his success and the success that he brought to Texas A&M and College Station. So, for me as a coach, right, and a former player, kind of navigating the new NIL world, it's like the wild, wild west out here. You have student athletes. Let's take LSU for an example. They're really like the mecca, right, for all of these financial opportunities for their student athletes, making multiple 6-7 figures with brand deals, just based on their success on the field or on the court. And then you have smaller institutions like ours, private universities that are maybe making 3 to 4 figure deals, right? Which is still wonderful for student athletes to have that second or third income and revenue stream. And really it's something that's kind of to the side of athletics. And it's really kind of what the student athlete wants to make. And it could be a wonderful opportunity for you to kind of kickstart your financial career, right, moving forward. And when I was a student athlete, we couldn't even accept free Chipotle after a good game and a great overtime win. So, the landscape of things has really changed over the last 8 to 10 years. But, I do think it's long overdue, and it's tough. I think depending on the coach that you speak to, you're going to get a different answer and a different opinion. I do think it's a wonderful thing. I think it's a great avenue for student athletes. It can be a huge selling point for institutions and programs. But I do think there needs to be some more regulations put in place because there really aren't any right now. But, kind of like anything, any company, any brand, any business that's started, you have to get it started, right, before you can kind of put parameters in place and figure out what the opportunities even can be with something like NIL. So, student athletes are navigating it. Coaches are working on navigating, handling how, there's some student athletes that are earning more than the coach themselves. And so what that looks like, and how you can, corral and mentor a student athlete and have a student athlete like that be a part of your program is something that I think coaches are working with and trying to understand and navigate too. So it's a really interesting new chapter, I guess, to the NCAA book.
Yeah, and I think about pro sports too, where it's most managers, hockey coaches, all that, they make less than the players. So I feel like, Rachel, it's one of those where it's almost turning into I don't want to say like a minor league system for pro sports, but I feel like I've got my thoughts on the NIL. I'll keep I want to reward the student athletes. Don't get me wrong, right. But I also feel like it's becoming corporate America in some terms too. So it's all about money. Like we know that it's all about, what can you do? So I don't know. It's
there's
interesting.
There's something special about keeping things amateur, right? And everyone kind of being on at least somewhat of a level playing field. And then if you're so blessed and fortunate to play in the pros, whatever sport you do play at, and participate in, that's when you get those financial opportunities, right? And that financial gain. But now bringing that from the pros down to the collegiate level, if you are minor or major leagues, there's why would you, at least for women's basketball, for example, why would you want to rush to go into the WNBA or play overseas? Why wouldn't you want to drag out your college career as much as you can if you're gaining financially so much, right? So there's, I mean, gosh, you could sit and talk on a podcast for hours about NIL, and just the pros and cons of it all, really. I think we're in a really good situation here at Seattle University where we have kind of a collective, and our student athletes take initiative, outside of the gym, and bring ideas and options to the staff, but they're reliant in that aspect. So opportunities come to them. They come up with ideas themselves. And it's been great, kind of like side hustles for our student athletes, but it's a machine. It's growing, it's moving at a very high rate of speed. And it's kind of taking a life of its own. So we'll see this year, next year, and in the next coming years, kind of what NIL becomes and how things change.
I wish I would have had NIL when I was a manager and video coordinator for baseball and all that. I wish I would have had it. But
right.
I think it's because you're putting in. Everybody says you get a free education, you get meals paid, but I don't think people, unless you've worked in sports, and last two things I want to touch on after this. Unless you've worked in sports, I don't think you understand what goes into being a student athlete, or just like for me, being a manager and video coordinator, all that. I don't think people understand how much behind the scenes there is.
Right. Yeah. And it's interesting you say that. And part of the reason why I wanted to get into coaching was, as a student athlete, you go from the best, if not one of the best players, on your club and your high school organizations, and you step into, a collegiate, especially at the Division I levels. Most of the time you're kind of back at the bottom, working your way back up in the team and in the program. And I was just really fortunate to have a great team, great teammates, great coaching staffs, and so while I was working, my tail off to be on the court, I also was able to watch just the dynamic of Kelly Harper and the great staff that we had. And I really grew an interest and passion for mentorship because, I was a handful, and I think they did a wonderful job in helping me mature on and off the floor. But there's, once you transition from that collegiate playing to, being on a staff, there's a lot of thankless jobs, long nights, low pay opportunities. But I think the thing to really highlight on is the opportunities, right? Because at that point, it's getting the experience, getting the hands-on development and mentorship to see if coaching is really what you're cut out for. If you like it and have that passion for it, I think it can feel like you don't work a day in your life, and I feel really blessed and fortunate that I get to collect a paycheck doing this, and I get to impact young women and the staff that I work with day in and day out. It doesn't feel like work for me, but there's a lot that goes into it, being a part of a staff. And, when I was a graduate assistant, going to school as well, getting my master's degree, and running strength conditioning and working with our guards and our post players and doing recruitment and game scouts, all the things that go in, and not getting paid for it as a graduate assistant in a monetary way, I gained in dividends at the end in experience. So I wouldn't change anything, but it was a lot to look back on. I'm like, oh my gosh, 14-hour days is crazy.
Yeah, no, definitely. Let me ask you this too, because I know I'm going to post this for all our Springfield friends. But looking back, you and I both have moved around a lot, and it's just, I'm one of those where it's like, looking back, I've only been gone from Springfield since 2015. You would have left in what, I guess 2018, 2019.
About 2019, yeah, 2019.
Yeah, so not too far, but like what where we've gone since then. But I feel like, at least my roots, and I don't want to speak for you, I know you're from Washington, but Springfield has a special place in my heart. Obviously, I grew up there. You grew up in Washington, but I just feel like, I tell people all the time, Missouri State's where I got my start. And I love that university. There's been an athletics director change, a president's change. Casey Hunt gets annoyed with me, I know, because I text her, like, I think I text her more than I do like anybody else, because she's close mentor. But that place just means the world to me. I made
Right.
so many friends and family, and it's what got me my start. So talk a
Yeah.
little bit about Springfield, Missouri State, if you don't mind.
Yes, no, for sure. I agree. And it's funny because I'm sure so many people, college grads feel this way, but, about their alma mater. But for me, there was no place like Missouri State. Being a Lady Bear and having ownership of being a part of such a great legendary program, full of rich culture and success is, followed me throughout my career. And I wear that name in my alma mater with pride. But Springfield, Missouri is a special place for a variety of reasons. I think it's a great college town. There's tons of booster and donor support for the programs there, athletic, academic, and beyond. The campus itself is absolutely gorgeous. I think the people are great. There's nothing like going to school in the Bible Belt, right? You have avid sports fans. You have people that love Jesus. You have people that want to pour into you and help you, and just want to see you get your start,
Mhm.
grow, learn, be mentored. And honestly, a lot of those connections have helped me get jobs down the road. And there's been lots of people from out here in Seattle that have been to Springfield, know of Missouri State. And it's funny because, everything always comes back around, right? And so there's really no place like Springfield, Missouri. And I loved it. I would love to be back at some point, because that's kind of where I got my start. And the program's absolutely wonderful. But having that fan support that we did, and having those people still stay connected with teammates of mine, my family, myself, just following my journey, as I've moved across the country and back since then multiple times, has just been wonderful. So
Yeah.
I had a legendary time on and off the court, with my teammates, my sisters, for life. And I think this is a testament, right, to what a special place Missouri State can be, because it brings friendships together. You build family members for life, built-in family. That's what we kind of call it. And I just think there's a special bond
Yeah.
there.
Yeah, no, and I appreciate that. It's just I look back and I think back to all those times that Blair Shannon, us gathering at the dining hall, or those pregame meals, or
Yep.
I mean, it's just like I said. Had you told me, and sitting there in 20, so that would have been 2014, 2015 year. Had you told me, kind of what I've gone through, what I've done since then, I would have been like, but it's because of Missouri State so I'm just fortunate to have people like you and Lexi, Oni, everybody I've had at Missouri State. I mean, I could name them all off.
Yeah.
Casey, Eddie Meyer, Coach Lusk, everybody. Just keep going.
Right.
I mean, I'm missing a lot of people, but it's been awesome. I'm looking forward to getting back. I always go back. I really don't get back to Springfield, maybe except for the holidays. But so we're having a 2015. I can't believe it's been 10 years already since the reunion with baseball for the Super Regional. So
Oh, nice.
looking forward to getting back for that, seeing all
Yeah.
yeah, it's I stay in touch. I'm actually going to see tomorrow. So the Mets, I don't really go into New York much anymore.
Okay.
Even though I'm only a half hour away. But Jake Berger plays for the Marlins now, and they're actually playing here in New York this weekend.
That's
So
awesome.
I'm going to see him. Yeah,
That's
so
awesome.
it's been awesome. But hopefully I'll be able to get out to Washington. I know your parents always text me, or like, come to Washington sometime. And actually, the New York Giants are playing the Seahawks October 10th. So
oh my gosh,
maybe I might be out there for that.
We would love to have you out. We would love to have you out. Once a bear, always a bear,
Yeah.
and we're all family. So that would be great.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, Rachel, thank you so much for your time. Glad we got to catch up, and best of luck this season. I'll be following you like I always do. And again, just proud of you, proud to know you, and appreciate all you've done. You're my sister, you know that, So
thank you so much.
Yeah. All right, everybody. On the sports clock with former Missouri State Lady Bear, current assistant coach for Seattle University, Rachel Swartz.
Thank you, guys. It was a pleasure.